on the show than today being International Women's Day. We'll talk about why it's important to her to even celebrate International Women's Day and why gender parity is equally important. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Her Excellency Miss Grace Jeanette Mason as she dances to her favorite song from Adina.
I'm celebrating International Women's Day.
Of course.
Adina is a South African Ghanaian artist.
And of course, that's why you love it as well. And this song in particular, because it connects South Africa and Ghana all together.
Absolutely.
Happy International Women's Day to you. How have you been?
Very, very well, thank you.
Enjoying your time here in Ghana?
Absolutely.
Okay, how many months has it been?
It has been over a year now.
Over a year?
Yes.
Going well?
Yes, I presented my credentials at the end of 2020. And it has been a year and a very successful year.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Welcome. So we say Sawubona.
Sawubona.
Sawubona. Then what do I say?
Yebo.
Yebo. Okay, so I say Sawubona to you and you say...
Sawubona.
But you are on my show, so I have to say welcome.
Yebo.
So Yebo. Or we say Akwaba. I'm sure you've learnt a few lines. So Akwaba, you say Medase.
Medase.
Oh, you know that
yes,
as well. But let's talk about International Women's Day first of all, before we even get into the other conversations. Why is it so important to celebrate International Women's Day?
When we celebrate International Women's Day, and as I rightfully see, you are wearing the right colors.
Oh, I am. Okay.
Green, white, and purple are the colors to celebrate the theme and International Women's Day.
Okay.
But just to explain the importance of it, it is a day to celebrate the achievement of women. And women's achievement, social, economic, political, the role of women in society, their achievements, and the empowerment of women. And to me, gender, inclusivity, women empowerment is a fundamental human right. And as we celebrate the importance of International Women's Day, we celebrate women's contribution, women leaders, women in politics, women in decision making, women in culture, women in trade, women in business, and all sectors. And that's the achievements of women. And when we celebrate, we even also celebrate the most vulnerable of women in communities. From the women in Makola market, to the women in the Nairobi markets, to women in Marabastad in South Africa, to even the women in the silk markets in Beijing. Just to celebrate and to thank them for their resilience. This pandemic has not spared anyone.
No, it hasn't.
Now, women's resilience, we also celebrate and thank them, and all women and their contribution, and just for advocacy of women empowerment. It's a day that we celebrate women.
It is, but have we made progress? And I'm asking this because there have been concerns about Africa and whether we've made progress in ensuring gender parity in decision making. But unfortunately, for many African countries, we have not met that yet. Even here in Ghana, there was a promise that there'll be 30% representation of women, you know, in politics. We haven't even achieved that yet. And the story is similar in some other African countries as well. Where you sit as the South African High Commissioner, first of all, have we been able to achieve that gender parity, or what do we need to do to get to that point?
Yes, a lot still needs to be done. But there are women that are taking up more leadership positions, roles in government. In governments, we in South Africa, we still have, in terms of our National Assembly and Parliament, representation of 46% of women. There are achievements in Rwanda where you have 50% of women. But if you look at it, and I want to scale it down to continentally, that yes, still more needs to be done to have inclusivity of women. Now, as we look at our plans and the African Union Agenda 2063. And if you look at Aspiration 6, the inclusivity of women, women representation in all sectors, the inclusivity of youth, women and youth especially. Now having women and where they can participate in decision making, whether it's in government, whether it's in the private sector. And yes, I agree, a lot still needs to be done, but you do have women now, women that are heads of state and government. Women, we have a lot of women that are now heads of international organizations that represent us. And on the continent, you have women speaking and advocating for women inclusivity and empowerment at international forums. We have women in industry, and what still will be done. And as I also then further go and explain in terms of getting programs together where you have women, mainstreaming women equality as well. You have the Continental Free Trade Area. And when we speak about women, and especially the most vulnerable of women, and we do know that 60% of women on the continent are the women that are in your cross-border trade. Now, the Continental Free Trade Area and the leaders are going to develop a protocol, and a protocol for women and youth, and women in particular, and women in trade and SMMEs. So those are the programs that are developed. And as I'll further, without preempting South Africa and Ghana in terms of what programs are available,
of course,
and what are we doing in terms of just strengthening our relations, but also further the relationships between South Africa and Ghana in terms of women empowerment as well. And I'll just...
Tell me more about that. I mean, I was going to come to it anyway, because I wanted to know, I mean, since you've been here, I know that you've organized some women-related events. There was a free breast cancer screening at a point. So I know how, you know, how deeply connected you are to women and ensuring that there's some level of empowerment for women between South Africa and Ghana. So moving forward, what has been done and what will be done to ensure that there's that strength between women in South Africa and in Ghana to ensure that they also are projected the right way?
Yes. What we have done is, you will remember that the President of the Republic of South Africa paid a state visit in Ghana from the 4th to the 5th of December. And during that state visit, a number of agreements, memorandum of understandings were signed. And one of the memorandums of understanding, a letter of intent to cooperate on issues of women empowerment, has been signed between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the Republic of Ghana. And if you would like, I would just take you through some of the contents of the memorandum of understanding. And the areas that we are going to cooperate. And this was an agreement signed on the 4th of December in the fields of women's socio-economic empowerment, elimination of gender-based violence, and assistive support for persons with disabilities. And this includes sharing information on gender-responsive planning and budgeting. As you know, gender budgeting leads to fiscal inclusion, policy making, and of course, governance as well, and administration. Developing joint programs aimed at eliminating gender-based violence. Now, when you look at our, of course, as I spoke of the pandemic, the global pandemic, many countries, and especially African countries, are still battling with the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And this has also affected women in particular as well. As we were grappling with the pandemic, we've also been grappling with gender-based violence as well. Exchange experiences on programs that would end child marriages. And these are for the most vulnerable of society. Facilitation of countries study tours to enhance best practices so we can learn from each other. And I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of gender-based violence and policy formulation as well. And also looking at women, and especially women with disabilities as well.
Okay.
And cooperation in assertive devices technology. As you know, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And as we empower women, we also want to empower young women and the girl child as well.
Okay.
And the development and implementation of projects for the mutual benefit of both women, socioeconomic empowerment, and just have training programs and have gender focal points where we can then engage as well. Okay. And of course, gender-based programs, study tours, and best practices between our two countries. So those are some of, that's primarily the cooperation and collaboration between South Africa and Ghana. Okay. And that's a letter of intent that was signed during the state visit of the president here.
I see. Okay, but moving forward, what can women individually also do to empower each other?
Yes. And I...
You heard Mona, yes.
Heard Mona.
When she said women...
And I was not eavesdropping on your conversation that the downfall of a woman is another woman.
Is it really?
We need to... Well, that's Mona's perspective, but we need to change that narrative. And when we speak about having a paradigm shift, it is changing the mindset, uplifting other women, having mentoring, if you mentor other women, having focal points, gender mainstreaming, where we educate women, because education is important. And yes, it takes one woman to raise another woman. There are role models. There are women that we look up to that inspire us. So most definitely, the rise of another woman is another woman, Bella.
The rise of another woman is another woman.
Is another woman, yes.
And so we should consciously make that effort.
It should be a deliberate, conscious, and collective decision. And as we do that, we must also, as women rise, and as we look at and particular young women, because those are the women that we want to inspire. So as you inspire young women, we also need to educate our men. We also need to educate the boys so that they know when you educate women, you also educate men, and that's for me, that's where you find the change in conversation and the whole narrative about the upliftment of women and empowerment and dealing with the gender parity.
Well, some nuggets there, and I do hope that you're learning from it. But this year's theme is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. What can we do as a continent, the global front, and even as two countries that are in partnership? What can we do to achieve this?
For us to achieve this, and as I've said, that we need to have programs and advocacy by women. Now you have women in leadership positions. More women need to be sitting on the table where decision making are taking place, so that we are part of policy formulation, so that it is inclusive and integrated. And of course, we want to ensure that it is sustainable. To ensure sustainable development, you need to include women as well.
Absolutely, you need to include women. And if that's the case, what advice will you give to the girls out there who are looking up to you? They love what you do in diplomacy. You've had over 20 years experience in diplomacy. That is highly impressive, and you're here today. But there are so many other young men who see you and say, I'd like to be like Her Excellency. What did she do, and what advice can she give me so I can also scale up and get to that level, or maybe even do better than her when it's my turn? What would you say to them?
I would say that I was raised by strong women. And as we celebrate International Women's Day, I just give gratitude for all the strong women that have raised me. Today in particular, I'm flying back this evening.
Okay.
I'm going to spend International Women's Day with my grandmother. She's 98 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she's blind. And that's a woman that has inspired me. So this year, I just want to dedicate International Women's Day to her. But also to say that all the women, especially the girl child, to inspire them. I always say there was a group of kids that I'm involved in. They call Dynamite Girls.
Okay.
So I inspire them. I have groups discussion with them, interactions with them, dialogue, and I inspire them to be great, to look up to other women, just to be inspired, that I become a role model to them as well, as I also look up to other women as well for inspiration. But just to say that we can do it. Now is the time that women take part, women lift each other up. It takes one girl to be raised in one community. So if you raise one girl, you raise a community. If you raise a community of women, you are raising a nation. So that's what I want to leave young girls with, that they should be inspired. And of course, work hard and persevere and lift each other up.
Absolutely. Yes. Work hard, persevere, and lift each other up. And of course, because today is International Women's Day, we're talking about the women and the girls and what we can do, to lift each other up. And I'm sure that Her Excellency has given us all the details. Just a quick one, maybe I'm just digressing, but there was a communique at a point about Ghanaians being able to travel to South Africa without a visa. And there was back and forth as to whether that was really true or not. You being the South African High Commissioner to Ghana, we just want to put that across. Is that true? And I'm sure I see people smiling because they want to know if it's true or not, or how far we've gone in terms of making that a policy that will be here to stay.
Yes. As I've indicated to you, there was a state visit. The President of the Republic of South Africa undertook a state visit to Ghana in December. A number of agreements were signed. There are still agreements, outstanding agreements that will still be signed. It's the Memorandum of Understanding on Defense Cooperation and the long-awaited visa waiver. And we are working on just finalizing it. It is just with our legal services now, when we will soon have it finalized, and we look forward to having that visa regime in place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What will be your final words before you go?
God bless South Africa, Ghana, our prosperous and peaceful continent, and all women out there, we celebrate you.
Amen.
Today.
Amen. God bless you too. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Her Excellency, Ms. Grace Janet Mason is the South African High Commissioner to Ghana, and she graced us with her presence this morning, rocking colors from International Women's Day. You look stunning, I must say. Thank you so much. And all the best to your grandma too. Tell her that we're also praying for her and we wish her the best.
Thank you.